I rejected many men, and at 30 I was ready to settle down. But when I finally found him, he told me, I cannot plan a future with a woman who has such an active past. Turning 30 was like someone flipped a switch in my brain. It was not with panic, as it happens to others, but with a sense of absolute clarity, almost like the calm you feel after a storm. My 20s had been the storm, a glorious decade of chaos, of passport stamps, of sunrises on unknown beaches and goodbyes at train stations. I collected experiences like others collect shoes. I felt I had done my duty, the duty of squeezing every drop of juice out of youth so as not to reach 40 wondering. And yes, now, with that chapter closed and well closed, I was ready for the next project, finding a husband. Do not get me wrong, I was not desperate, quite the opposite. I felt like a high-level recruiter with the most coveted position on the market. My phone was a constant parade of candidates. There was the lawyer, who although he looked impeccable in photos, had a laugh that sounded like a faulty horn. Rejected. There was the bohemian artist who talked about the energy of crystals and probably considered paying rent on time a construction of capitalism. Next, there was the good guy, textbook boyfriend material, who on the second date was already talking to me about the names of our future children. Too intense. He gave me claustrophobia. I was not picky, I was selective. I had invested 10 years in building the woman I am, and I was not going to give the prize to just anyone. My best friend Carla was my biggest supporter. Why did you spend years toughening your skin, learning languages and breaking hearts, and now you are going to settle for the first one who offers you a life of sofa and Netflix? She would tell me over glasses of wine, and she was absolutely right. I saw other friends who had married their college boyfriends, and their lives seemed flat to me. Respectable, yes, but predictable. Their biggest dramas were deciding the color of the baby's room walls. My life had been an art house film, and I was not going to end it with a low-budget romantic comedy finale. This casting process, as I called it, was exhausting but necessary. It involved a change of image. My profile on dating apps went from showing photos of me at a festival in Croatia to more serious photos. Me in an art gallery, me preparing an elaborate dinner, me smiling calmly with a book in a park. I had to project stability and maturity. I knew that the type of man I was looking for, a man with a plan, with ambition, would not be attracted to the girl who climbed on the bar in a bar in Thailand. That girl had her moment, but now she had to remain in the memory album. Internally, I felt that I was playing a strategic game of chess. Every move, every conversation was calculated to lead me to the goal. Sometimes, in the solitude of my apartment, while reviewing profiles, a small, annoying voice whispered at the back of my neck. It showed me images of couples my age pushing baby strollers, laughing in a supermarket, and I felt a strange pang. It was envy, no, impossible. It was impatience. The impatience of someone who knows they deserve something and is simply waiting for the universe to catch up. I crushed that doubt with a reminder. I chose my path. I chose freedom first. Now I choose stability and I have earned it. And then Andres appeared. I met him on one of those paid apps, the ones that are supposed to filter out people just looking for something casual. His profile was the definition of stability. Engineer, 33 years old. Photos in which he was not posing, but simply living. One on a mountain, another with his family in what seemed like a Christmas celebration. No selfies in the gym mirror, it was perfect. From our first conversation I felt he was different. He did not try to impress me with exaggerated anecdotes, nor did he use cliches. He asked questions about my work, my long-term goals, my opinion on serious topics. It was like a breath of fresh air. On our first dates, I consciously presented my version 3.0. I talked about my professional ambitions, my desire for a quiet home, how much I enjoyed a weekend cooking at home. When he asked me about travel, I mentioned my visit to museums in Paris. Not the full moon parties in Koh Phangan. It was not lying, I told myself, it was curating. I was showing the facets of my personality that were compatible with the life I wanted to build with him. The rest of my story, my 2.0, could be revealed later when the relationship was founded on something solid. Andres was a man of routines and principles. His calm was magnetic. There was no drama, no games. If he said he would call at 8, he called at 8. If we planned something, it was done. At first, a part of me, the adrenaline junkie of my 20s, found him a bit predictable, but I quickly learned to see that predictability as what it was, security. Being with him was like being in a safe harbor after having sailed through stormy seas for a decade, and I was more than ready to anchor the ship. I remember one night at the beginning when I almost put my foot in it. We were having dinner with some of his friends and someone mentioned a trip to Berlin. Without thinking, I was about to tell that crazy story of when I ran out of money and had to sleep 2 nights in an artist commune. I bit my tongue just in time. I felt the cold sweat on the back of my neck. I diverted the conversation to the Berlin Wall and its historical significance. Andres looked at me with a smile of admiration, and I felt a mixture of relief and a strange feeling of being an imposter, but I convinced myself. It is for the greater good. When he truly loves me, he will laugh at that story with me. Carla, of course, was delighted. It's him, girl. It's him, she told me when I told her about Andres. You keep it up, mysterious. Let him fall in love with the incredible woman you are today. The past is just that. Past. It defines nothing. Her words were the balm I needed every time that little imposter voice whispered again. She understood me. She knew I was not deceiving Andres, but protecting something potentially wonderful from premature judgment. The months passed and the relationship grew deeper. We said, I love you. We talked about his dream of buying a house in the suburbs, of how he would like to have a dog. I saw myself in that picture. I fit in perfectly. I had adapted so well to his world that I almost forgot about mine. I convinced myself that this quiet life was what I had always wanted deep down, that my decade of chaos had only been a necessary detour to appreciate peace. I was in love, or at least I was in love with the idea of what we could be together. And I felt the time had come. He was hooked, for sure. It was time to show him all my cards. The idea of the confession began to take shape in my head as an event, a kind of graduation ceremony from our initial phase. It was no longer a secret to hide, but an epic story to share. Carla was, as always, the final instigator. He has to know the lioness he's with, Sophie. A real man isn't scared of a past. He feels intimidated and attracted in equal parts. It's a filter. If he doesn't pass it, he wasn't for you, she told me with the confidence of a relationship guru. That phrase, it's a filter, became my mantra. It was not a test for me, it was a test for him. I spent days preparing my speech mentally. I did not want it to sound like a list of ex-lovers or impulsive decisions. I wanted to frame it as a journey of self-discovery. I wanted him to see that every experience, every mistake, every adventure had been a brick in the construction of the sophisticated and self-assured woman sitting in front of him. I planned to use phrases like, I needed to explore my independence so as not to depend on anyone. I had to learn to be alone in strange cities to know my worth. And my heart needed to break a few times to understand how to care for someone else's. It sounded poetic, powerful. I was convinced it would leave him speechless. I chose a Thursday night. We had had a quiet week. I ordered his favorite Thai food, put on a soft jazz playlist, and lit some candles. I wanted the atmosphere to be intimate and safe. When we sat on the sofa after dinner, with glasses of wine in hand, I told him in my most serious yet tender tone, Love, there's something I want to talk to you about. I feel our relationship has reached a point where I want you to know me completely, without filters. I want to tell you about the Sophia from before, the one who brought me here to you. His expression was one of attentive curiosity, which I took as the perfect signal to begin. And then I opened the floodgates. I told him about my backpacking trips, about the waitressing jobs in different countries to finance the next adventure. I told him with carefully chosen euphemisms about the intense, but fleeting connections I had had. I spoke of my philosophy of saying yes to everything during my 20s. I did not give numbers or names, of course. I presented it all as a vibrant tapestry of life experiences. I was selfish, I admitted with false vulnerability, but it was a necessary selfishness to grow. I had to live for and by myself so that I could now be ready to build something real with someone. As I spoke, I watched him. He said nothing, just looked at me with his eyes fixed on mine. His silence did not seem awkward to me, quite the opposite. I interpreted it as a sign that he was processing the magnitude of my journey, of my incredible story. There were moments when his jaw seemed to tighten a bit, but I attributed it to the intensity of my revelations. I was sure that in his mind he was connecting the dots, realizing that my current strength and independence had not come out of nowhere. When I finished my monologue, I felt incredibly light, as if a weight had been lifted off me. I smiled, expecting him to hug me and say something like, Wow, you've lived so much. That makes you even more incredible. I left a dramatic silence in the air, a pause for his words of admiration to fill the space. I felt proud, vulnerable, and strong, all at once. I had laid my past at his feet like an offering, sure that he would accept it with the reverence it deserved. The filter was in motion, and I had no doubt that he would pass it with flying colors. The silence that followed my confession was different. It was no longer attentive, it was heavy. The air in the room seemed to thicken and the soft jazz playing in the background suddenly seemed strident and out of place. The smile froze on my face. Andres did not move. He continued to look at me, but his gaze had changed. It was no longer curious, it was evaluative, as if he were looking at a complex equation and trying to find the solution. "Well," I said, trying to break the tension with a nervous laugh. "Aren't you going to say anything? I know it's a lot to process." He blinked slowly, as if coming out of a trance. He put his wine glass on the table with exaggerated care. He cleared his throat and then uttered the words that were seared into my memory, the words that changed everything. In a quiet, almost clinical voice, without a hint of anger, he said, "Thank you for your honesty, Sophia, but I cannot plan a future with a woman with such an active past." The word active fell between us like a stone in a pond, creating shockwaves that left me breathless. My first reaction was total disbelief. "Active?" I repeated, and my voice sounded higher than I intended. "What the hell does active mean? Is that a euphemism to call me easy, to judge me for having lived my life before I met you?" Outrage began to boil in my chest, a wave of heat that rose to my face. My whole speech about empowerment and self-discovery had crashed against that cold, dismissive adjective. But he did not flinch, he did not raise his voice. He simply looked at me with a calm that seemed to me the worst of cruelties. "No, Sophia, it's not a judgment. I'm not putting a label on you," he said, and his serenity infuriated me even more. "It simply means that our experiences and our core values are incompatible. The person I want to build a family with whom I want to share my life, is someone who has taken a different path. For me, the decisions of the past matter because they make us who we are today. And in all honesty, the life you've described to me is not that of the person I see myself growing old with." His logic was a wall of ice. There were no cracks, no fissures where my anger could slip through and make him react. If he had yelled at me, if he had called me names, I could have answered him, I could have turned this into a fight. But his calm and reasoned rejection was 1,000 times worse. It was a complete annulment. He was not rejecting my actions, he was rejecting the essence of who I was. In my head, his words twisted and transformed. Incompatible became, "You're not good enough." A different path became, "You're dirty." "So that's it," I burst out, no longer able to contain myself. "You're one of those. A hypocrite who wants a woman with experience in bed, but with a flawless record. Are you scared? Are you scared of a woman who knows what she wants and who hasn't spent her life waiting for you?" I threw every accusation I could think of at him, desperately trying to provoke an emotion in him, anything other than that quiet, firm disappointment. But he did not take the bait. He got up from the sofa. "This is going nowhere, Sophia," he said, and his voice sounded genuinely sad, which enraged me even more. "I think it's best if I go." I watched, paralyzed, as he grabbed his jacket and his keys. There was no slam door. The door closed with a soft click, a final and definitive sound that resonated in the deafening silence of my apartment. The scene I had so carefully prepared for my grand reveal had become the tomb of my relationship. The moment the door closed, the sadness I should have felt was consumed by a pure, white rage. I did not cry. I paced back and forth in my living room with my heart hammering in my chest, feeling the echo of his words. Such an active past, active. What a cowardly and prudish way to say it. As if my life were a sexually transmitted disease. Every step I took fueled my fury. He was not sad, he was judging. He was not incompatible. He was a caveman in an engineer's suit. My first instinct, my only need at that moment, was to seek validation. I picked up the phone and dialed Carla's number. The words came out of my mouth like a torrent, a version of events already edited by my indignation. "He left me," I yelled into the phone. "Because I told him about my past? He basically called me a prostitute without daring to use the word. He told me that a woman like me is not family material." I omitted the calm of his explanation, the part about values. In my telling, he was the misogynistic monster and I was the innocent victim. Carla's response was the fuel my fire needed. "What? I can't believe it. He's a cowardly ___, an insecure ___, I told you, girl." It was a filter and that ___ didn't pass it. "You dodged a huge bullet. Imagine being married to such a close-minded man. He would have snuffed you out." Every one of her words was a balm for my wounded ego. She was right. I had done nothing wrong. He was the defective one. He was the one who was not up to par. With my blood still boiling and Carla's words echoing in my head, I opened my laptop. I needed more. I needed the world to know the injustice I had just suffered. I started writing the post for Reddit. My fingers flew across the keyboard, typing out my manifesto. I presented myself as a modern, free woman, punished for her honesty. I painted Andres as the archetype of the backward man who says he wants an independent woman, but when it comes to it, seeks a submissive virgin he can mold. As I wrote, my brain started working overtime, reinterpreting our entire relationship through this new lens. Remember how I admired his stability? Well, now I realized it was not stability, it was rigidity. His calm was not maturity, it was a terrifying lack of passion. His questions about the future were not about building a life together. They were a trap, a series of tests to see if I fit into his perfect wife mold. Every beautiful memory was tainted with a new and sinister light. I published the story and leaned back in my chair feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and vindication. I had exposed myself, yes, but I had done it on my terms. I had taken his rejection and turned it into a story of female empowerment against male hypocrisy. I was no longer the woman who had been abandoned for her past. I was a martyr to freedom, a warrior who had scared a weak man with her light. And I waited for the comments to come in and confirm what I had already decided was the absolute truth. The blame was entirely his. Popular Reddit comments on the main story. Anonymous User 1. You sound incredibly self-centered. It doesn't seem like you told him with honesty, but that you put on a performance expecting applause. He didn't call you anything, he simply expressed that his values were not compatible with yours, which is totally valid. He was looking for a partner with a similar lifestyle, not a submissive virgin. You should reflect on why his calm enraged you so much. Maybe it's because you couldn't manipulate his emotional reaction. OP's reply. Wow, it seems I've struck a nerve with the Good Men's Club. Self-centered for owning my story. A performance for being honest. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologize for having lived. And of course his calm enraged me. It's the typical passive-aggressive condescension tactic. It's a way of saying, you're crazy and I'm the rational one, without having the guts to say it to your face. If you can't handle the truth, maybe the problem isn't mine. Anonymous User 2, and you are the idiot. You sold him a completely different version of yourself for months. You basically catfished with your personality. When you finally told him the truth, you expected him to just accept it all because you already had him hooked. He didn't reject you for your past, he rejected you for your deception and for the clear disconnect between the woman you pretended to be and the woman you really are. OP's reply. Catfishing with my personality is the most ridiculous thing I've read today. Don't people have the right to evolve? The woman I am today enjoys a quiet night at home. That wasn't a lie. The woman from my 20s is also part of me. She is the one who gave me the strength I have now. It's not deception, it's complexity. It seems some can only think in black and white. He fell in love with me, with a 30-year-old Sophia. If he's too insecure to accept that I had a life before him, that's his problem, not mine. Anonymous User 3. I'm sorry for what happened to you, but I think you're focusing on the wrong injustice. Maybe the problem isn't that you had an active past, but the way you see it and present it. You describe it as an achievement or a trophy. And maybe he just felt that you didn't share the same vision about what it means to build a life. Some people value tranquility and shared experiences from the beginning. It doesn't make you bad or him close-minded, just different. OP's reply. So now I have to be ashamed of my past for a man to accept me. Do I have to present it as a series of mistakes I regret? No way. My experiences are a trophy. They are medals that show I have lived, that I have not been afraid. If for him tranquility means a life with no history, no scars, no having learned anything the hard way, then I'm glad he's gone. I'd rather be alone than with someone who wants to erase half of my biography. Update 1. A week has passed, and it has been a real whirlwind. First, I want to thank everyone who has supported me. Your messages have made me feel less alone in this. They have confirmed that I am not crazy and that what I experienced was a flagrant injustice. To those who criticized me, well, I guess the internet is full of bitter people who need to project their own insecurities. I have decided to ignore that negativity and focus on what matters, my truth. The initial rage has settled into a kind of cold, determined resolution. This was not going to be the end of it. Encouraged by Carla's crushing logic, he's just panicked. Sophie, you blew his mind, and he doesn't know how to react. He needs a little push to see the jewel he's letting slip away. I decided I could not just give up. I had a pretty good relationship with his sister Laura. We had gotten along well from the beginning. We had a similar sense of humor. I thought that she, as a woman, could understand my point of view and talk to her brother, make him see things from a less rigid perspective. I wrote her a long and carefully worded message, explaining my version of events, emphasizing how much I loved Andres and how unfair it seemed to me that everything would fall apart because of such an old-fashioned mentality. Laura's reply took hours to arrive, and when it did, it was like a punch to the gut. It was polite, yes, but incredibly cold. Sophia, I appreciate you writing to me, but this is a matter between you and Andres. I know my brother, and although he is a quiet man, he is very firm in his decisions. I respect his choice, and I am not going to interfere. Respect. She respected his decision to be a moral judge and executioner. I felt it as a betrayal. Another woman siding with the patriarchy. It was clear that family loyalty outweighed sorority. The final blow came 2 days later. My attempt to open a channel of dialogue through his sister, as I like to call it, obviously reached him. I received a final message from Andres. It was short, sharp, and brutal. Sophia, your inability to accept my decision and your attempt to manipulate my family to pressure me only confirm that I have made the right decision. Please do not contact me or anyone in my circle again. I wish you the best. And right after the final blow, he blocked me on WhatsApp, on Instagram, everywhere. He disappeared. Now the narrative in my head is even clearer. This is no longer just about his fear of my past, it is about his cowardice in facing conflict. Instead of having an adult conversation, of arguing, of trying to understand me, he has chosen the easy way out. Cut and run, build a wall around himself and surround himself with people who agree with him like his sister. The blocking is not a consequence of my actions, as some of you would suggest. It is the definitive proof of his emotional immaturity. I feel hurt, of course, but more than anything I feel outraged. Outraged by the ease with which a man can discard a woman for not fitting into his preconceived mold. Outraged by how I have been punished for being proactive and fighting for what I want. But this is not going to bring me down, on the contrary, it has opened my eyes. The universe has not taken the man of my life from me, it has saved me from a life of censorship and mediocrity, and for that, strangely, I am almost grateful to him. Popular Reddit comments on the update. 1. Anonymous user 4. Are you really reading what you write? You contacted his sister to manipulate him, and you call it opening a channel of dialogue. He set a clear boundary. You crossed it massively, and now you are surprised that he reinforced that boundary by blocking you. It is not emotional immaturity, it is self-protection. You are behaving in an incredibly toxic and harassing way. OP's reply harassing is a very strong and completely out-of-place word. Since when is fighting for a relationship harassment? I would have understood that reaction if I had made a scene at his work, but I sent a civilized message to his sister. I was trying to save what we had. His scorched earth reaction is totally disproportionate and only shows that he does not know how to handle complex emotions. Some of you prefer the comfort of silence to the discomfort of a real conversation. Anonymous user 5. Honestly, OP, I think you need professional help. The way you twist reality to fit your victim narrative is alarming. You interpret every direct consequence of your actions as further proof that the world is against you. Andres is not a coward. He is a man who knows what he wants and, more importantly, what he does not want. And clearly, he does not want someone who does not respect the word no. OP's reply. Thanks for the unsolicited diagnosis, doctor. It is fascinating how when a woman defends her position and refuses to be trampled on, the immediate response is, are you crazy? Do you need therapy? Maybe the ones who need therapy are those who believe a woman should accept a rejection based on misogynistic prejudices with a smile and a bow. My reality is not twisted, it is the one I live. And in my reality, people who love each other do not give up at the first hurdle. Anonymous user 6. Andres' sister taught you a lesson in class and boundaries that you did not understand. She responded to you with respect and stayed out of it, as she should have. What you call betrayal and lack of sorority. Most people call it being an adult and not meddling in other people's relationships. She did not side with the patriarchy, she sided with common sense. OP's reply. Common sense is often an excuse for passivity. Sorority means supporting each other. It means telling your brother, hey, you are being a close-minded idiot. Give her a chance. She chose the comfort of not creating a family conflict instead of defending what is right. For me, that is a disappointment. No matter how you look at it. I did not expect her to fight my battles, but I did expect that as a woman she would have a minimum of empathy for my situation. Clearly, I asked too much of her. Final update. 6 months have passed. 6 months that have honestly been like a fog of resentment and justification. I have reread my post and the updates several times, and each time I am more reaffirmed in my position. Time, instead of giving me perspective, has only cemented my conviction. I have moved on with my life, of course, I have gone out, I have met other men, but it is as if I am wearing tinted glasses of cynicism. Every man is a suspect. Every question about my past a possible red flag. I have become an expert at detecting the slightest hint of traditionalist mentality to discard them before they can discard me. My friendship with Carla has also changed. She has met a guy, one of those stable and predictable ones that we would have torn apart in our wine nights before. Suddenly, her advice has shifted. Now she talks about seeking peace, about the importance of compromise, about choosing your battles. When I try to talk to her about the injustice of what happened with Andres, she changes the subject or gives me vague answers like, well, Sophie, sometimes things just do not work out. I feel as if she has abandoned me on the battlefield. She is a traitor to our cause, seduced by the comfort of an easy relationship. The loneliness has become denser, and then 2 weeks ago it happened. I was aimlessly scrolling through Instagram, like so many nights, when I saw a photo. A mutual friend had tagged Andres in a post from a barbecue, and there he was smiling with his arm around a woman. I felt a lurch in my stomach, an acidic mixture of curiosity and pain. I clicked on her profile. It was public, and what I saw was the missing piece of my puzzle, the final confirmation of everything I had been thinking. Andres's new girlfriend, let's call her Anna, is the antithesis of me. Her profile is a monument to blandness. Photos of hiking, close-ups of her pottery attempts. A photo of a cake she baked herself with a wool sweater she knitted herself. There are no party photos, no exotic trips, not a single bikini in sight. She is simple, ordinary. She is the type of woman who is probably already saving for a down payment on an apartment at 22. She is not ugly, but she lacks spark, danger, history. And seeing her, everything clicked in my head with a painful and liberating clarity. I understood. Andres was never afraid of my past. Active. It was not a problem of values, it was a problem of control. He did not want an equal, a partner who would challenge him, who had her own world, her own stories. He wanted clay. He wanted a blank canvas on which he could paint his perfect and predictable life. He needed someone manageable, someone without a history that could intimidate him, someone whose greatest adventure was deciding what flavor of homemade jam to make on Sunday. I am writing this, my last update, not from a place of anger, but from a strange bitter serenity. I am no longer angry with Andres. I feel a kind of pity for him. He has chosen security over passion, comfort over adventure. He has chosen a life in pastel tones instead of one in Technicolor. And I am Technicolor. And maybe that is the final truth. The world, or at least the world of men like Andres, is not made for women like me. We are too much, too bright, too complex, too full of life. So this is my ending. I have not won in the traditional sense. I am still alone, but I have gained something much more important, understanding. The understanding that there is nothing wrong with me. The problem is a world that still expects women to apologize for living fully. I refuse to do so. I accept my fate. If being alone is the price for being true to every chapter of my story, then it is a price I will pay with my head held high. I am a martyr, yes, but a martyr to my own fucking freedom. And no one can take that away from me. Popular Reddit comments on the final update. Anonymous User 7. Wow. 6 months later, and your capacity for self-reflection is absolutely nil. You have judged and torn apart a woman you do not know at all based on her Instagram profile just to reinforce your victim narrative. Maybe she is not bland, maybe she is just a happy and secure person who does not need external validation from a wild life. Maybe Andres did not want clay, but someone genuinely compatible with his peaceful lifestyle. OP's reply. Judging is exactly what Andres did to me, so call it karma. I have not torn her apart, I have observed the facts. Her public life is a catalog of domesticity, and it is not a narrative, it is the logical conclusion. There is nothing wrong with wanting a quiet life, but let's be honest, it is often a cover for the fear of the unknown. He chose the easy path, and she is the personification of that path. I represented a challenge and he failed. End of story. Anonymous User 8. The part about your friend Carla is the most revealing. She has not betrayed you. She has grown up. She has found someone and her perspective has matured, while you are still stuck in the same loop of resentment. She has probably distanced herself because it is exhausting to be friends with someone who lives in a perpetual state of outrage and who refuses to accept any responsibility for her own unhappiness. OP's reply. It is funny how people call maturing giving up your principles for a relationship. Carla and I had a pact, a way of seeing the world. She has broken it. It is not that it is exhausting to be my friend, it is that now my story makes her uncomfortable because it serves as a mirror of what she has sacrificed for peace. I prefer my honest outrage to her conformist maturity. At least I am true to myself. Anonymous user 9OP. Your final update is one of the saddest things I have read. You have built a fortress of self-justification around you so impenetrable that nothing can get in, not reason, not friendship, not the possibility of future happiness. You have crowned yourself queen of a one-person kingdom, declaring that everyone else is too weak to live in it. I hope one day you realize that the walls of that fortress do not keep others out, they keep you locked inside. OP's reply. Sad. No, it is not sad, it is realistic. I have not built a fortress, I have accepted reality. And if I am locked in, it is in my own authenticity, which is 1,000 times better than being free in the cage of someone else's expectations. I do not need your pity. I have myself and I have my complete and uncensored story. And for me that is enough, it is more than many people can say.